What if Riley, the protagonist of Inside Out, were bisexual? This theory has been circulating for years and gained even more traction with the release of Inside Out 2. The main idea behind this theory is based on the fact that the emotions inside Riley's mind have mixed genders, while in the minds of adults and other characters the emotions match the gender of their owner. Riley's emotions are a mix of both masculine and feminine traits. This led some people to believe that this creative choice might symbolize her identity still being formed and could even suggest something about her sexuality. But the theory doesn't stop there. Another major piece of evidence pointed out by fans is the relationship between Riley and Val, an older and popular hockey player who appears in the second movie. Some scenes between them made audiences start shipping the two, interpreting Riley's reaction to Val's presence as a possible romantic interest. So, did Pixar really intend to send this message, or is this interpretation purely from the fans? To answer this, we first need to understand how Pixar has been handling LGBTQ+ representation in its stories. To determine if Pixar truly intended to suggest something about Riley's sexuality, we need to look at the studio's history regarding LGBTQ+ representation. Pixar has always been known for telling emotional stories filled with deep messages, but when it comes to diversity, the studio has taken a more subtle approach. In recent years, the company has started including LGBTQ+ characters, but always in a discreet manner. A good example of this is the short film Out, released on Disney+, which was Pixar's first project to feature an openly gay protagonist. Another instance occurred in Lightyear, where a lesbian couple briefly appears in the movie. This short scene was enough to spark controversy in some countries, even leading to the film being banned in certain markets. This shows that, despite progress, Pixar still faces challenges when addressing LGBTQ+ themes explicitly. Additionally, there's Luca, a film that many fans interpreted as a metaphor for discovering one's LGBTQ+ identity. The friendship between Luca and Alberto was seen by some as a parallel to the experience of coming out, especially because the movie revolves around different characters who have to hide their true nature to be accepted. However, the creators insist that Luca does not have a romantic theme and that the character's relationship is simply a genuine friendship. So, where does Inside Out 2 fit into all of this? We know that Pixar likes to create stories that can be interpreted in multiple ways, allowing different audiences to relate to the characters. However, unlike Out and Lightyear, Inside Out doesn't have any explicit LGBTQ+ representation. If Riley were truly bisexual, we would at least expect some direct hint in the script or character development. What is more likely is that the studio crafted a narrative open enough for each viewer to see Riley in their own way. This allows LGBTQ+ fans to identify with her without Pixar having to make any official statements, which protects the company from commercial controversies and ensures that the movie reaches a broader audience. Now that we understand the context of LGBTQ+ representation at Pixar, let's analyze a crucial point that could debunk this theory: the impact of adolescence on Riley's emotions. Since the first Inside Out, we've seen that Riley's emotions are quite different from those of adults. While her parents have emotions that follow a single gender, her mother's emotions are all female, and her father's are all male. Riley has a group of mixed emotions. But does this really indicate something about her sexuality? A more logical explanation could be the transition from childhood to adolescence. Unlike adults, Riley is still discovering herself and learning to deal with her feelings, which could explain why her emotions don't have as distinct physical traits as her parents' emotions do. If you notice, her mother's emotions wear glasses and have the same haircut as her, while her father's emotions have mustaches. This suggests that as we mature, our emotions become more organized and more clearly reflected in our identity. Now, look at Riley's emotions. They don't have any strong physical features that directly resemble her. This could mean that Riley doesn't yet have a fully formed identity, and this applies not only to her sexuality but to her entire personality. She is still in a phase of change, where her emotions are evolving and nothing about her is completely defined. This makes sense when we consider that adolescence is a period full of uncertainties. At this age, it's common to experiment with different tastes, social groups, and interests without necessarily having a fixed identity. Some people take years to fully understand themselves, and Pixar might be representing this symbolically through the way Riley's emotions are portrayed. Thus, instead of Riley's mixed emotions indicating that she is bisexual or gender fluid, they might simply be showing that she is still growing and trying to figure out who she really is. Since the release of Inside Out 2, many fans have started shipping Riley with Val, interpreting their interaction as a potential romance. This happens mainly because Riley seems nervous and anxious in Val's presence, something many associate with having a crush. But is that really the case? Or does Val represent something much deeper to Riley? If we analyze Inside Out's storyline, we'll see that Riley has always struggled with changes and insecurities. In the first movie, she went through a major emotional crisis when she moved to a new city and felt out of place. Now, in the second movie, she is entering adolescence and facing new challenges: the need to fit in, social pressure, and the search for acceptance. Within this context, Val might not be a romantic interest, but rather a reflection of what Riley wants to be. Val is older, confident, popular, and great at hockey, everything Riley aspires to be. The way Riley acts around her might be more about wanting to be accepted into the group than a sign of attraction. This is something very common in adolescence. Many times, when we meet someone we admire, we feel a mix of anxiety and desire to get closer, which can easily be mistaken for a crush. But in reality, it may just be a wish to belong and to become more like that admired person. Another important detail is that, so far, Pixar has not indicated at any point that Riley and Val's relationship has a romantic tone. On the contrary, their dynamic seems to follow a more friendship and admiration-driven path, which is common in coming-of-age stories. So, does Riley really have a romantic interest in Val? Or are we seeing in her something that actually just represents the natural journey of a teenager searching for identity? After analyzing all the evidence, the question remains: is Riley really bisexual, or is this just a fan interpretation? If we consider Pixar's history, we see that the studio has made progress in LGBTQ+ representation, but always in a subtle way. However, unlike Out or Lightyear, Inside Out 2 does not provide any explicit confirmation about Riley's sexuality. What we see are elements that can be interpreted in different ways, allowing each viewer to see the story in the way they identify with most. Furthermore, when analyzing how emotions function, we see that the mix of masculine and feminine emotions in Riley's mind is likely more related to the fact that her identity is still developing. Her emotions lack defining physical features, unlike the emotions of adults, precisely because she is still maturing emotionally. This means that her personality is not yet fully defined, and this applies not just to her sexuality but to her entire identity. And when we look at Riley and Val's relationship, we see that the supposed chemistry between them may just be a natural admiration that teenagers often have for older, more popular people. Riley may simply want to be like Val, fit into the group, and become more confident. This admiration can easily be mistaken for a crush, but Pixar does not provide any clear indication that a romance is involved. In the end, the theory that Riley is bisexual may be more of a fan interpretation than an actual intention by Pixar. This doesn't mean the reading is wrong. After all, part of cinema's magic is allowing different interpretations. But for now, there is no official confirmation that Riley is part of the LGBTQ+ community. Now we want to hear your opinion. Do you think this theory makes sense? Or do you believe this is just a big misunderstanding? Leave your comment and let's discuss this theory together.